Today's segment is on 10 common pitfalls to avoid when interviewing for the fire service. Okay, really what nobody's telling you. That's what we're going to go through. Number one is one of the biggest pitfalls we always see is candidates come to us and they said, hey, I'm worried about my competition. I don't have as much education. I don't have as much work experience. I'm not as strong as them. I'm not as quick as them. And that's one of the biggest pitfalls right off the bat. And I'm here to tell you, it doesn't matter. The biggest competition you need to worry about is the one that's staring back at you in front of the mirror. Okay? You are your worst or your best competition. Don't worry about the person to the left or to the right of you. Okay? I've known plenty of people that have less education, less work experience that have job offers over somebody that's very, very well qualified, degrees, masters, fire service, technology degrees, things of that nature, but they don't have the ability to communicate and they don't provide depth. So that's the number one pitfalls. Number two, candidates aren't prepared for the interview early enough. Okay? You have your most important interview, it's just not scheduled yet. And you'll hear us talk about that throughout our site, and you'll hear us talk about that in all the different testing environments. Okay, the people that score well are the folks that are preparing for the test months, if not a year and a half in advance. Now is the time to prepare for your oral interview. What we see out there are people that are aggressive. They're taking classes, they're running, they're in the gym, they're staying physically fit, which is incredibly important. But where they're falling short is they're not really getting prepared for the interview. We see probably 8 out of 10 candidates really start to shake the trees and talk to a whole lot of people once they've received that official email or letter in the mail inviting them to that process. And I can tell you right now, very few people have the ability to prepare 3, 4, 1 week, even 2 weeks out for their most important interview. What you've heard us say, and we'll say it again, is you are just a number on a piece of paper when taking the written, when taking the physical. The oral interview is the first time that we connect a face with a name or a number, and you actually become a person in front of that oral board. Now imagine you get 15 to 20 minutes to leave a lasting impression, and you've only prepared for 2 weeks. It's not going to cut it. And I'll tell you, over 24 years of work experience in the fire service and sitting on numerous boards from entry level all the way up to fire chief recruitments, we know for a fact that that's not going to do it. If you want to find yourself in that top 5 to 7%, and I know you do, and a lot of you are going to be able to get there, you need to commit and start with a program. And we're going to help you develop that program. So don't wait till last minute. Start preparing now, and we have some videos for you to help you do that. Third pitfall, poor listening skills. We see this all the time. Far too often, we have a candidate that has the inability to listen and or take criticism. A lot of the time you'll see the candidates, they'll be sitting there, they'll listen to the question, and right away you can see them starting to formulate their answer. And then once you start to think about an answer, you've done what? You've tuned out. You're not listening anymore. And there would be numerous times that we're sitting on an oral board, we ask a question, the candidate starts to answer it, and in essence we put our head down going, okay, another candidate that didn't listen to the question. And it bothers us because most, if not all, panel members want you to do well. They want to see you have the best day. They want to see a good candidate come through the door and be a great candidate as they leave. We want to see that. And part of those skills are for you to be able to really learn the techniques, to focus, listen in on the question, and then start to answer it. It's okay if you have a delay. It's okay if there's a pause as you're thinking about your answer. That's okay, but the worst thing you can do is not listen. Okay? Oftentimes, with them not listening, they miss the question altogether, or they don't address specifics in that question. Okay, number 4, poor communicator. Kind of ties in with poor listening, poor communicator. Oftentimes, we get people that ramble on or come across as conceited. Sometimes they're overbearing, or they lack confidence, or they lack maturity. That comes across as a poor communicator. We watch people as they're communicating, they lack discretion, or they come across as ill-mannered. Okay? You don't want to be one of those candidates. Somebody that's considered indifferent or very passiveness, they tend to be real passive or submissive, they put their head down, or body language, we've talked about that. But with specifics to communications, you want to be very confident and have the ability to communicate well. Oftentimes candidates don't have an internal clock. They'll start to ramble. On average, they give you a minute, minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes at the most to answer the question. These people tend to ramble, and you don't want to be one of those candidates. You want to have that internal clock. Many candidates come across as a know-it-all attitude, and many make excuses or come across very nervous. Now, being nervous isn't necessarily a bad deal, but being nervous and not being able to communicate through that after the first 3 or 4 minutes of the interview is a bad thing. So, poor communicator is the 4th pitfall. Number 5 seems real basic, but no or real weak handshake. Got to have a handshake. That just demonstrates your ability to be confident and strong, looking people in the eye as you go in. You shake them coming in, and you shake them going out. Look into their eyes, firm handshake. Seems basic, but you got to practice that. Okay, 6th pitfall is unclear of the organization's grooming standard. Seems pretty basic, actually quite funny as we teach this around the area that we live in and across our web-based business. People will email us, talk about that, and what do you mean by grooming standard? Well, you need to know your organization's grooming standard that you're testing for. Some people will show up with offensive jewelry or haircuts, exposed tattoos, with a Bluetooth and nose ring. You'd be blown away with the stories that we can tell you. Don't be one of those candidates. Know who you're testing for. If you have some tattoos, cover it up. Choose a conservative route. Be familiar with that organization's culture and choose that conservative route. It'll definitely benefit you at the end of the day. Number 7, lacks common sense. Okay? They lack common sense. What I mean by that, lacks interest, knowledge in the community. A lot of times people are flying up for tests. I know I used to fly up to Seattle to take their tests in different areas. You got to know that the interest of that organization, some of the things that are challenging that are going on in the organization over the last 12 or 18 months, and be sensitive to that. You need to know what's going on in that community. Common sense. We see people that bring in cell phones, pagers, things like that. Don't be a name dropper. Don't be somebody that goes into the interview is dropping names. Oh yeah, I know so-and-so and I know so-and-so. You just don't know what that board's made up of and life history and experiences that they had amongst themselves that can impact you. Again, talking about lack of common sense. People go in and demonstrate low moral standards. Some speak too loud, some are too soft. You don't want to do that. Use good common sense, and you're going to do real well. Number 8, poor personal appearance. Again, we see this all the time. People might go into an interview with no suit. Perhaps they're too casual. Or they do take a suit and it's not pressed. It looks very unkempt. Too provocatively dressed for the female candidates. Okay, don't go in there dressed like you're going out for a dance night in the city. Okay, be aware of that. Perhaps they have a tie, but it's poorly tied. Okay, you want to be aware of that. Shoes are not buffed out or they're a wreck. Body odor is offensive, and they're chewing gum. Be aware of those things. Don't let that be you. Number 9, lacks cultural depth. Okay, what do I mean by that? Most cities are very diverse. They want to have employees, if they're going to hire them for 25 to 30 years, to be sensitive to the culture and the diversity within their city, within the county, within that district, within the state that you're going to get hired by. Be aware of that. Have cultural awareness. Figure out what's going on in the cultural centers around there. Go talk to individuals in that organization. Don't be afraid to meet with the battalion chiefs and figure out what's happening and what type of events are going on. Be sensitive to that. Have community sensitivity. Be aware of that. Do your homework. Due diligence. Don't go in there with strong prejudices. Okay, it'll kill you, and they'll pick it up right away. And don't be somebody that goes in there and lack tact or courtesy. Be very, very sensitive. Have good professionalism when going in. Finally, 10, and the last pitfall that you don't want to be is somebody that's ill-prepared for the interview. And you can kind of pick up themes through each one of those pitfalls that demonstrates candidates that come in ill-prepared, that don't have any, haven't spent any time really with depth about their upbringing. Those who have mentored them, life experience, are going to find themselves at the bottom of the barrel. Don't be that candidate. Come and check us out at 911interviews.com. Hope this helped you out. Good luck with your next test. 3, 2, 1.